and there really is no transformer like it that we know of in the state, and to get one like it would take at least 4 to 6 weeks for a company to build it and ship it to us. Obviously, Ventures is a huge facility. They switch from Consumers Energy to us. They are on a rate that, there's those two industrial rates, the GS DPM or the GS DTO. The transfer ownership rate means they own the transformer. They're not on that rate. So we're actually collecting a little bit more every month for us to be responsible for their transformer and a failure. And since they became the customer 4 or 5 years ago now, we've actually collected more than enough money through that additional charge compared to them being on the other industrial rate to buy a new transformer for them. If we were to have to rent emergency generators and pay for fuel for 4 to 6 weeks before a transformer arrived, it would cost us north of $100,000 is the estimate. So it was staff's feeling and Greg's feeling that this is something that couldn't wait either. We need this in stock and as a backup. So we did go ahead and order both of these. These haven't been delivered. They're still being built. So if the board didn't approve it, I'm sure we could somehow put a stop to it. But this was the recommendation of staff to go ahead and order the transformers. I'm just coming to you for approval. We did go out to TNR Electric and Howard Industries for quotes, and TNR came back at a price of $25,410 for both transformers, and Howard came back at a price of $29,000 for the Ventures Atwood transformer and $24,000 for the other 1500 kVA transformer. So we did go out for 3 quotes, and we went with Solomon. They're also giving us a 36-month warranty again. So if something like this were to happen in the next 3 years, we'd be covered.
2
What
things.
was this? I guess so that transformer that burned up, was that from them too, or?
It was from Solomon.
Okay, so
it
it's
was
the same
due to a
warranty
bad
and-
bushing,
Mhm.
and you had talked about the bushing and us being able to even check if it's secured to the right specifications, and that's something that Ryan and his staff want to do.
Yeah, there's a torque wrench that you use to install the inserts. We have the right tool, and that was done on both of them from what the guys have said when they installed them, so all that was done correctly. It's something deeper in the transformer that caused the failure, from what we feel.
And then, I guess, just a question, so the transformer that's there now, that's different, a different rating than the one that was?
No. The
They have-
transformer at the DPW is
There-
a smaller one than was there.
There was a transformer over at DPW
Right.
that was operating also
Michigan Wire.
Michigan Wire.
Mhm.
Michigan Wire has basically downsized to
Right.
just minimal, so they were able to, that was the only one that they could put over there that matched it. So they could take that one from that site, put it over there, and then put a smaller one behind the DPW garage because the need wasn't there because of Michigan Wire being gone
Right.
from that location.
And I guess that's what I was wondering, is that so it was a 1500 that was lost, and so we took the 1500 from there,
Yes,
put it here and put a
1,000.
1000, and that'll be still enough, that's plenty of capacity because of Michigan Wire now?
Things are actually sized more correctly now.
Yeah, okay. And the other question I had is, so how many transformers do we have that need spares, or that we have, I guess, because are there others of like, do we need more 1,000, kVA transformers or as a spare, or I don't know I don't even know what we have, around the system, but I just.
I think
I'm
this should
assuming
really,
probably that came up in the discussion, I'm guessing, but.
These 2 spares will take care of every other option. I mean, the stuff that's over in the warehouse available right now takes care of everything else that you're asking about. These 2 are ones that we do not have spares for, that we will have now, once they get here.
Oh, so the ones in the warehouse are smaller,
Yeah, for
but they would
other-
cover anything else except for these 2.
Yes. They're just different voltages, different configurations, just specific for another location.
Okay.
This gives us 100% coverage, where
Right.
whatever goes up in flames, we got something to fix it.
So, a couple of things, just for future reference, and I know next month is my last board meeting, so it doesn't matter, sorry. But for future reference, because we talked about this before when we ordered all those poles last year or the year before. I think it would be beneficial, and I don't recall if it allows for an email vote anywhere in our,
I don't think so.
Stuff.
except that-
I know
But I
we
think
can
it would
get
be
a
beneficial
vote
just-
or
It's
something
not
like
public,
this.
yes, over
But I
here,
don't
so-
know if we can do
well,
an
that's
email
true, because
vote.
it's not public.
Yeah, you
I
can't
think
take
it would be
action.
beneficial to at least notify the entire board. I mean, I understand the reason this has to come is because it's over the
Right.
limit, and it's
Yeah, I should
not a
have done
question
that.
of,
I'll do that.
I trust your judgment, you guys know what's best, and you've got to prepare for
Just
any
like an
potential.
FYI.
But just an FYI in the future.
Okay.
My question is, because I don't know enough about how the transformers work as much as you guys do from all your years on the board. We put these things into storage. They have a 3-year, I believe you said it was a 3-year warranty. If it sits in storage for 5 years, I mean, what's the
Yeah.
shelf life on these things in terms of it's sitting in storage and we may or may not use it in the next
If
3
it's-
years and the warranties run
forever.
out and,
Yeah, it can sit there
Okay.
forever. It's-
Okay.
The warranty's from date of installation, correct or not?
It's-
I don't know,
It's not.
probably date of purchase.
Date of purchase.
Yep.
okay, okay.
So that's the
So
risk,
the warranty's really not gonna
that's the
help
risk.
us this time,
Well,
next
there's
time
gonna
around.
be potential projects that we can do in our 5-year plan that may call for another 1,500
And I understand the need to
transformer.
have it on hand, because if
Right.
it takes
Yeah.
4 to 6
So,
weeks to get it, and you've got a
there may
major
be-
company without power,
You know what I mean?
you
Like
can't
2
do
years,
that.
So it can be
so-
covered for 12 months
Right.
or whatever.
We had a lot of
Well, if we
Main
were to get a
Street
new one-
businesses that were without power, and initially the
Right.
assessment was it was gonna be 24 hours,
Right.
and they were freaking restaurants with
Hey, I was
coolers.
freaking out in my house.
And then it went
so
to,
fun.
we're looking
Right.
at 12 hours, and it ended up being, what, about
5.
4.5
I
hours,
was-
you know?
yeah, it was pretty
Awesome
quick.
job.
You guys did
But
good.
there's a lot at stake here, and that's why when Steve called me and said, you know, if Atwood goes down, we could not only be without for a
No,
little
and
bit, but
I
$100,000.
completely
spent.
understand the need to have it. I just wanted to understand if there is a shelf life. If it sits in storage for the next 15 years, it's not going to hurt anything. It's fine. That's what I
Other
just
than we lose
needed.
the warranty.
That's what I needed to
But you do
understand.
have
But it's pretty
insurance.
rare to have a failure within the
Yes,
first 3
that's-
years,
that's
too.
We do
Yeah,
have
everything's
insurance.
insured.
Yeah.
So we
Right.
have a $500 deductible too.
Right,
So
Right.
really.
That's important.
Yes.
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
So
And
if we were to have another project you mentioned that might use one of these,
Then
then we
we'd
just
prob-
buy a new one to put in that project and leave this one, the spare in storage, so to speak?
Or we'd use the spare and buy a new one to put in storage again.
Okay.
Right.
Well, just that the new one, if you put it in the project, it has the warranty.
True.
If it's only a $500
That's
difference, I
true.
guess it's.
Still
not a big
$500.
deal, Yeah.
Right.
And I'll apologize to Dan. It wasn't Steve, it was on my assistance, and talked to Greg. It was just a situation where I personally did not want to wait, because this was the day after our last
Right.
meeting, and knock on wood, nothing has happened, but
Right.
I didn't want to wait another 30 days. Either we needed to call a special meeting or wait
Right.
another 30 days before they actually had a backup.
Right.
Because I did not feel comfortable, did not want to wait. I think it's something that we have to have, especially on those, because what we've done in the past, and I know Zealand's, they've called up and said, hey, do you got this? And they've come over and gotten one from us, or we could
we
go.
borrow from somebody else.
We've checked, or the staff have checked, and there was no, for Atwood's, the one over here, okay, but for Atwood, there was nothing available in the state with that configuration and everything, and I was,
Right.
so I pushed them and pushed Greg and pushed Ryan and pushed them to, let's get the thing ordered, because I'm not gonna go
And,
and,
yeah, and
and
from a
have that.
business standpoint, it makes absolute sense, and I have no problem that you did it. My concern is, and the same thing when we ordered those poles, from a business perspective, it made absolute sense. I do, however, have a problem with sort of approving something that's already been spent, just as a point of order. So I don't know if there's something you can think about doing in the future when there are these emergency situations to allow staff to make those decisions. I mean, I don't know how we do that.
all I can say
but-
is it hasn't been spent because we haven't gotten them yet.
Replace the order.
Okay, and I
placed the order.
understood that you placed the order, meant you
And we
already
are
spent the
allowed to
money.
place the order.
Without the.
Correct.
Okay,
Without
because I
board's approval.
understood
We are
that
allowed
you-
to get the chair's
Okay.
approval on items like this.
And I understood that you had
Yeah.
already dispersed the funds.
No,
in
we have
place
not
in the
dispersed
order.
any
Okay.
funds.
Then that I'm cool with.
No,
but
we
I
haven't
just-
written any
I just
check,
was
we haven't done
concerned
any
about sort of
invoicing.
retroactively approving the disbursement of funds. I have a problem with
No.
that, so.
No, we have
Okay.
not dispersed any funds or even
Okay.
gotten an invoice.
Okay, thank you.
No.
And that's not what I understood when you introduced it, so I feel better about it.
No, just the order's been placed, so we're in the queue,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, and it absolutely was the right decision. I mean, I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying for point of order, if we're going to approve disbursement of funds, we should do that before the funds are spent.
I understand.
So, yeah,
Yes.
so, okay. So in that case, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of 2 Solomon transformers. Do we need all the details, Sharon?
They're here.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Last action item, MERS 457 plan adoption. Over the last number of months, MERS has developed a 457 plan. A 457 plan is pretty much equivalent to a 401k. It's just because we're a government, it's called 457. A 450, we do currently offer a 457 plan through AXA Equitable to employees. There's no cost for Lowell Light and Power to offer the plan. It's just a simple payroll deduction. Lowell Light and Power does not match any employee contributions. It's just another way that employees can save for retirement. MERS has approached me, like I said, they now offer a 457 plan that has considerably lower fees and plan expenses than other providers. And I sent them our AXA information, and AXA roughly charges a weighted average of 2%. MERS is 0.52%. Over, I believe, 32 years with a person earning $36,000, contributing 5% of their wages, and earning an 8% return. MERS says that that person with AXA would pay $111,000 more in fees than with MERS. So, with MERS being able to offer a 457 plan, Lowell Light and Power are able to offer that to employees at no cost. There's no limit in terms of the number of plans we're allowed to offer employees. And we currently provide our employees a pension through MERS. It just makes sense that we adopt the MERS 457 plan and allow employees to choose if they want to stay with AXA or go with MERS or whatever they want to do, or they don't have to do either. It's not a requirement to even participate in the 457 plan. This is just something that MERS came to me with, and I just thought it would be a free, cool way to offer a benefit to employees that doesn't,
It's
cost.
another better option.
Right. So that's really what it is, if there's any questions. My recommendation is just to approve this plan. It does have to go to council, because Light and Power on the MERS plan is like a subsidiary, so council would have to approve this. And I do want to get in touch with Dave, because the city also has the opportunity to offer this same plan to their employees. I think they have I'm not sure who their provider is, if it's AXA or ICMA, but they could offer a more MERS 457 plan as well, and employees can do their due diligence of what they want to do with their money.
I have no question.
I have a question, but it's after, it's more of a procedural thing. It's not, so my question is, do you bring in somebody that speaks, that on a routine basis, that speaks with our employees, that encourages them? I'm just, again, 62 years old, getting closer to retirement.
Yeah.
Haven't really didn't plan ahead, so I'm working till I go to.
You need one of
Oakwood-
these.
I'm working till I go to Oakwood Cemetery, but I want to, the community, or our employees, do you routinely have somebody come in once a quarter or whatever?
We have had Fifth Third Bank come in a couple times in the last year and a half, and they offer different training programs. We haven't chosen the retirement program, but we could choose that. Currently, our AXA Equitable point of contact lives right near Lowell, and when people, start at Lowell Light Power, we say, hey, we do have a 457 plan, we have a contact. If you'd like to sit down with them, they can put together a full comprehensive plan of your insurances and your benefits and what your social security might be and that type of stuff. But me personally, or someone in staff, I don't sit down with somebody and review their own personal retirement.
I just think it'd be, once a year or whatever, if the office, if you brought somebody in that would spend 2 hours with all of our employees of just talking about, again, what it's gonna cost and what it's gonna save you,
Yep.
by starting young, like a Megan, starting young and putting just a minute in, that grows exponentially
Right.
and makes life a lot easier when you're,
MERS does have
Advocating for
like
education here.
pizza and planning. MERS has like pizza and planning or some tagline that they use where they'll go around the state and maybe 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, anybody who wants can go to these meetings and talk with people and how MERS works. And they actually also developed an online tool so people can make an employee portal. MERS right now can see what each employee's current pension benefit is through the company, but employees have the option to put in, okay, I have a Roth IRA through this provider and put how much is in there and how much they're contributing. MERS would be able to take this 457 and implement it automatically. So there is this online comprehensive tool for employees to, okay, if I save this much in this fund, this much in this fund, it grows at this rate, this is how much I'm gonna have. And so there are tools like this, but
So what I hear Perry saying
I
is
wanna
we're
encourage.
advocating that maybe at a staff meeting, or you take an extra time just to help educate the staff. I think
Right.
that's what
Yes.
you're encouraging, if I'm
Yep.
understanding you.
And we do have monthly morning staff meetings, and I try to bring up a different topic, and maybe the next couple of months I'll reiterate some of these options and encourage people to start saving for retirement.
In your spare time.
Yes. Exactly.
Make it
with
sure
that,
it's
I would,
no.
make a motion to adopt, the MERS 457 plan to send over to city council for approval.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, that takes care of the action items. On to informational items, the first of which is the performance data. I think this is the closest I can remember ever seeing a current month compared to a current month previous year. In terms of billing days, between residential and commercial, they were all within a day compared to last year's billing cycle, so that explains some of it. And the weather must have been fairly similar to last year because we're about dead on and compared to sales, so it's a pretty typical month for April. We have a few more residential and commercial customers than last month, up slightly. Moving down to the middle of the page, information from prior months. February, again, this is delayed data that we get due to the timing of information that MPPA gets, but February 2016 compared to 2015, we were down 5.1% in sales, and in March, our peak demand was down 5.14%. So, moving down to residential and commercial billing statistics, this is the end of a new quarter. You will see that residential sales were up compared to the previous quarter, and the average bill was up, but actually, the cost per kilowatt hour went down. Now you'll see that, the cost per kilowatt hour varies between quarters. We actually have not increased the PCA, I believe, since December of 2014. So just because the cost per kilowatt hour varies, it's really, when there's a lot of kilowatt hours being used, your fixed costs are being dispersed over more kilowatt hours. So rates haven't changed, but this is just showing the cost per kilowatt hour that residents paid, and it came in at 12.6, and the last 5 quarters, our average is 12.6. Commercial sales were also up to roughly 11,900 kilowatt hours with an average bill of $12.76, and you'll see that the cost per kilowatt hour dropped 0.3 cents from the previous quarter. Any questions on the first page? Moving to the back, cash, very consistent compared to the previous month, just down roughly 0.6%, and compared to the previous year, up significantly, and that's mainly due to the fact that we still haven't paid for a lot of the items that have been approved for the AMI project and the Rolls-Royce combustion turbine. But we're in a good spot with our cash. With delinquents, balance from the previous month, $45. So great job Sharon, Megan, and staff. And delinquent balance of inactive accounts is $93.88, a little bit up compared to last month, but down significantly from the previous year. So that's something that I like to keep track of the closest, because once a customer becomes inactive, it's much harder to get that money from them. If they don't want to pay you, you can't shut off their power because they're already gone. So moving down to aging analysis, you will notice it's up significantly compared to the previous month, and that's really due to one commercial customer that owes us a large amount of money. I'm really not worried about it. They're just behind, but we would be in the 40s if it weren't for that customer. So they're just a month due, a month behind. Any questions on the performance data? Moving on to the outages, we've already talked about the major one, and just a little technicality, because the outages varied in time, we were able to get some customers on quicker. On the east side, we had to have an outage that was shorter here. We had to list them as 3 separate outages because they were all different amount of minutes. So you'll see that we had 4 outages. They were really the result of just one outage, if that makes sense. And the other outage took out 2 customers for 50 minutes. A squirrel took out a transformer fuse. This past month, when you look at the number of minutes out and do the math, we were available 99.89% of the time.
Do you know
So-
what the industry average is?
We did go over this last month,
Oh, sorry.
and I can't remember Andrew, you might,
Yeah, it was,
probably 99.98% is the AC.
Because I know I heard that when I went to that conference, but I don't remember what they were. I'll have to look it up.
yeah, I remember that we were close, if we took out the major event, whatever it was
The
from the
King
last
Milling.
year's.
Yeah.
That we
We
were
were-
close to our average would have been close to the overall average,
Correct.
Okay.
but I can't remember what it
I
was.
just was curious.
Yeah, it varies by region
Right.
and size of utility.
Right.
I think it's 99.9798 area. So for this past month, we were 99.9
Yeah.
roughly.
The one thing I remember from that last month's report for the outages, that like, of all the outages, like for everybody's, like the number 2 outage was like squirrels, right? The first was like trees or something.
Okay?
Is there no way to like make a squirrel baffle? I mean,
Agreed, yeah.
I mean,
That was one of my
I mean,
questions.
it's funny that there's like squirrels and then all of the animals combined don't even compare to them, you know, and it's,
They're curious.
yeah, but I just, like at some point, I've got to believe somebody in the industry is trying to find a way to keep squirrels out of these things, but
There is animal guards that can be applied. They're still gonna get up there. They're still gonna climb around.
yeah, I mean, I know you can't keep on out of bird feeders either, so, but there must, I mean, it just seems like there's got to be something, but on the other hand, I'm sure that if there was something, it would have been done, and so it's just amazing how much.
Aren't you the
squirrels can
engineer in the
cost us,
group?
yeah.
So there's a project for you.
Yeah.
We are eliminating the dumb ones one at a time, but it's gonna take a while.
They keep breeding more and
That's just amazing that this whole huge power industry and squirrels are like its
Taken
number
out
2
by a
nemesis,
squirrel.
you know?
Right. Okay, on to the income statement. We were slightly below budget, 3.84% on total operating revenue. But, month to month, things can vary. I really look at how we're doing year-to-date, because that's how we plan things over the year. For sales revenue, $307.76 different, 0%. So, I don't know if that
That's not
counts
zero.
at being 0, but it rounds to 0%, so I'm gonna take credit.
You're gonna take credit for 0%? Woo!
But we're 0.33% under budget year-to-date, which really isn't a concern, so 10 months, year-to-date, we're sitting very in a good position for revenue. Generation, purchase power, we're under budget, and we were under both for the month and the year. Distribution, we've covered this the last few months. Really, distribution's over because of personnel, the Atwood transformer, painting and power washing that we've done to buildings. So it's not necessarily bad we're over on distribution, it's just how things fell into place this year. Customer accounting, marketing and advertising, admin, we're all under for the year. Office supplies and office insurance and maintenance were really over just due to the property and liability insurance. We're 9,200. I just didn't have a good grasp on that, what that would come to with the addition of the turbine, or the couple turbines. So that's really the reason we're over there. Employee benefits, we were under for the month, but over for the year, and that's just due to the change in personnel and the retirements and some PTO days that we had to pay out, and then the pension on top of that. And then we're under miscellaneous and depreciation for the year. And that sums up to, we're $15,491 over budget on operating income, so we're within 2%. And for the year, we're 5.5% over on net income. You'll see that I actually budgeted a loss in April for our net income, and you're like, why would you budget a loss? But some months you just have higher power sales than others, or higher power costs and sales and the timing of the invoices. But I did get great news. Our latest power invoice for May, this won't be what you see because there's other power, but our big one that normally is 330 to 350 came in at like 250. So I'm expecting a great May for net income, and I do expect that we hit our net income goal. Don't know if there's any questions about any of the individual expenses, but year to date, we're in a very, very good spot. Moving on to capital projects. You'll see the two worksheets, the summary sheet by project. We spent roughly $75,000 compared to last. If you look at our expenses from March to April, they went up by roughly $75,000 due to the payments for a couple transformers that we had approved for the Rolls-Royce project, and then the servers for the AMI project were delivered and we paid that to Dell. So all in all, roughly $100,000 we spent this past month on capital projects. And those were the changes, but you'll see we still have $543,000 remaining in the fiscal year. Any questions on the capital projects? All right. On to the manager's report. At the time I wrote this, and even until right before we put out the packet, I wasn't sure we were going to have the documentation from the MPPA to go forward with the wind purchase power agreement. So this first paragraph here, we've kind of already discussed regarding the wind and how the process works. So we've already discussed that in action items. We did have the monthly MPPA board meeting yesterday, and not a lot of discussion really to relate to the board, other than there was a meeting after the normal meeting for the Grid Alliance Service Committee, which Lowell Light and Power is a part of. Grid Alliance is a transmission company that is looking to develop transmission projects in the state, and they have approached us, and I've met with them, and even when Greg was here, we met with them. And part of the Grid Alliance discussion is later in this packet, but I'm just going to cover it all right now. Lowell Light and Power is fed from one transmission line, and we're considered a radio. We have one transmission line, feeds our substation, so if that transmission line were to go down, we're out of power. There are other communities that are radios, and the chances of a transmission line, it takes something significant like a tornado or a car to go off the road and really just whack a pole. But we do own 6 miles of transmission. It is a radio, so it could be to Lowell Light and Power's best interest to work with someone to develop a transmission project that would build a line that would feed the substation from a different area, that would put like redundancy, so if one transmission line went down, you have another one available. We've had discussions with Grid Alliance, and they have a modeling system, and they put a transmission line in their modeling system, and what they're trying to do is, if they can build a transmission line that benefits the entire region, and it shows that it helps out other customers in other cities and other communities, the maintenance and annual cost for that transmission line to maintain it can be spread out to all customers in the region or the zone, because it benefits everyone. The transmission line that they put in their modeling system showed it only benefited Lowell, meaning we would have to pick up the entire cost to maintain that line if it were to be built, which would be very expensive. Last week, Greg Northrup and Grid Alliance and I had a meeting, and LEED is looking at, this is in the future, looking at the possibility of building more biodigesters or expanding outside of town, not necessarily for us, but for other customers, and if there's a market. What if they were able to build a transmission line to not only service them and us? So there could be a possibility if LEED were to expand, or there would be generation facilities outside of town, and they would need access to the grid. If a transmission line were built that a LEED or a different company could use, and us, maybe it would all of a sudden benefit the region. I'm not sure how that's all calculated, but we are looking into that. And MPPA really is focused on creating a group that they're calling like a transmission investment committee. They don't want to solely go with Grid Alliance. There's other customers like ITC out there that they're big players. They're not as small as Grid Alliance, which is good and bad. They're a lot more secure, but they have a lot more overhead, so to develop a project might be more expensive. But on our income statement, you'll see that we pay transmission costs. We have grandfathered agreements in Bell River and Campbell where we get credits. For other areas, we have to pay transmission costs. It's possible if we get involved in projects like this that we can actually invest in transmission, own transmission, and lower our transmission costs. Does that make sense? So the MPPA is looking at creating a transmission investment service committee. We don't know what vendor we'll go with. This is very preliminary talks, but the idea would be that we could invest in transmission projects that make sense, that build reliability and redundancy for the region and the members, and there would be the opportunity for us to receive credits from the region because we're part owners, and we would get a return on our investment. So it's pretty cool, complicated stuff. I'm trying to make this as simple as I can, but this is a potential service committee and something that Light and Power and the MPP are looking at and seeing if there's better alternatives or redundancy that we can build for Lowell. I know Greg's a little bit more of an expert on this than me, but do you have anything to add to that, or?
It's a good summary.
Okay. So that's really what we took the majority of the time yesterday. Normally, I will not go to the MMEA meetings because I'm not on the board. Greg was on the board. There's all 41 municipals on the board, and they have monthly board meetings, but they do have a spring and a fall meeting. And today was their spring meeting, so they encouraged all members to go. So I did attend today's meeting, and it was a great meeting. Valerie Brader was there. Senator Knopf was there, and they gave different presentations just on the industry. And I have some notes about those. And the choice program, which will allow people to switch providers, is going to stay. That's kind of an update from right now it's at 10%. 10% of people can switch, and that's going to stay.
You want to provide my electricity when I move out of town?
I think the choice is just for like investor-owned utilities and things like that, but I'm just giving you just a general update.
I'm just teasing you.
Yeah.
I'll miss the electric company. What can I say?
There is a state goal of now having 35% of energy come from either renewables or energy waste reduction. And Sharon, this is probably good for you to know, they're going to change the term energy efficiency and energy optimization to energy waste reduction. This is how the governor would like it spelled out and talked about, so that's how the MPPA is going to start talking about it, so it's energy waste reduction. And that goal for utilities will still be in effect. I heard 2 different dates, they're 2018 or 2021, so we're going to have to keep sharing around a few more years.
Oh, it'll continue, I'm sure.
Valerie spoke and talked about, there was that big outage in Lansing a couple winters ago, and right now a lot of the emergency preparedness and state police are only prepared for outages that last a day or two. And really, people can survive for a day or two, but once it goes into 3, 4, 5 days, it gets a little more chaotic, and there's a lot of looting, and people start to go a little nutty. So the state is, the Michigan Public Service Commission is working with the state police for an emergency response plan for outages that last longer. Now, this isn't necessarily anything that affects like municipals and cities, but I do think it might be a good thing for us to look at. God forbid our transmission line went down, or somehow we weren't able to have power for a number of days. Like, what would we do, or what could we do to restore power? So that's being looked at. And through this whole Flint crisis, the state is trying to save money by making sure infrastructure improvements all happen at the same time. So if water and electricity and roads and different things need to be replaced, people get on the same page. And we're lucky we're in a small town, but it's just something that I felt was very obvious. You know, we should be in communication when a road's being torn up. Is there anything the electric company or the water company can do at that time? But it's something that's going on in the state. Doesn't necessarily affect us, but she talked about it for a long time. And then Jim Weeks just kind of reiterated what they had said. So not anything terribly new, but just keeping the EO, keeping the customer choice, and the 35% goal. So, and it's very fluid, it could change. So Jim Weeks' PowerPoint actually had different information than Chairman Senator Knopf spoke about this morning. So it's changing quick. The APPA, no really news, but I did get a little pamphlet and flyer in the mail, and usually I'm not a sucker for them because there's a different conference or a different webinar or a different brochure, but they did have something called Governing for Excellence, and I read through the little memo that they put out about it, and I actually was like, you know, we have money in our board training and board training budget, so I did decide to purchase a number of manuals for all of you that I do hope to reference and look at, and we can compare ourselves to what they suggest in the industry. So this will be for your pleasure and reading. And Tamala, do you want one for a month, or?
No, not for a month,
Couldn't
but
wrap them
thank
before you
you.
gave them to us?
I think that,
Well, you knew you were getting them if you read this.
I think you can save it for the new person.
What's that?
You can save it for the new person.
Okay, I mean, if Alan, you want one for the.
He's got one.
Okay.
Thank you, yeah.
Everybody has one?
One for Tina. so-
One for Tina.
Okay, yep.
That's right.
So it's just a book that I flipped through it a little bit, but there's just a lot of good industry standards, pieces of advice, how to govern, what makes a good or a bad utility or board or community. So just a tool that was inexpensive, and I think I'll reference in the future. So
So, is that like a
pretty
pop
cool.
quiz? You're gonna reference?
All right.
some?
Yeah,
There's
So
a
we gotta-
quiz, what chapter are we supposed to be
you
ready
know,
for?
next
Page 42.
I think next
Reading
board
club,
meeting will be a
Carrie.
little lighter, so we can go over this book next board meeting.
Okay.
System generation upgrade progress. The biodigester hit the 800 kW mark this past month and still had a surplus of gas. And they actually produced 428,000 kilowatt hours, which was a 44% increase compared to their previous high in any other month. And what that means is they were running 74% of the time. So production, since the hiring of Viola, has improved dramatically, which is a great thing. With that being said, though, Greg Northrup did come in last meeting. He did talk about the I believe, 4 violations of the wastewater treatment plant. And, you know, I got an email about this, and there's still a phosphorus problem, and Greg and Viola have installed additional piping, and they're doing more monitoring than ever to fix this. As of the last couple weeks, I think things have been clean, but I have let Greg know that this problem does need to get resolved, like now, and it can't go on. So I am aware, I'm being kept in the loop. This is Greg and Pam and Viola's responsibility to get fixed, but production is up, it's going great. It's just now their discharge to the wastewater treatment plant is causing Mark Munn and his staff issues, which we cannot have. So Greg did present on that last month, but I am aware and monitoring, but just an update there. And I know I talked with Perry. There is still an odor in the building.
And I think Andrew can speak on this also. I feel that Lowlight and Power has been very patient, and I think the biodigester is a good thing. I think that there's some issues that just need to be resolved. And when we went to Andrew and myself, Mary Eileen Laponzi, there's Mark Howe, there's a group of 7 or 8 of us that went to Germany.
Tom.
What we saw there, we saw 4, I believe, or was it 5 biodigesters. The first one we saw was at a landfill, and it smelled like if you drove by Coopersville in the summer. So
The landfill near Coopersville.
right, not Coopersville, so the landfill. If you go by the Express, anybody that's in the summer's gone by there. And we went to several others. The last one that we went was on the outskirts of a city. It was very impressive. You could eat off, I mean, you could literally eat off the floor. It was that clean. They were using cow manure, sugar beets, and corn silage as their feedstock. Literally no odor. There was a little bit of odor of some cow manure when there was a relief valve that would occasionally release, and we were told that, you know, on a system that ours, we would vent it back into the tank so you wouldn't have that issue. I think we need to sit down with Mr. Northrup. I think, you know, I would say to him is bring your office out and sit in that building and conduct business out of that building for 2 weeks, and then come and tell me that everything's fine. It's not what currently, I think it, you know, hopefully it can be resolved. We have a neighbor here, has a business there, he can attest to it. You know, the biggest concern we had when we went over there was the smell of manure. And so that's the reason why we went over to Germany to take a smell, take a sniff test. I know that my next door neighbor recently said something about, oh, the smell of cow manure. Well, that has not really been the issue at our biodigester. When I was told that, I went out for a drive, in the John Gratz property. They were spreading manure on that. I mean, we are a rural community, so you are going, I mean, where I live, if the wind is right, I get the smell of manure from farmers that are close by that are spreading that. It's gonna be summer. People are gonna wanna have their windows open and everything, and this fog, fats, oil, and greases, which is where my understanding most of the odors coming from, needs to be resolved. I know they've talked about, they put a cap on it, they've put a charcoal filter in, It's not what I signed up for. I mean, I'm just coming right out and it's not what I signed up for or what we saw in Germany. I know they're using a different, I think it's great that we're not having to take fats, oil, and greases and shipping them, Lighthouse isn't having to ship it to Muskegon and go in a landfill, and, I mean, it has its uses, but this odor has got, in my opinion, has got to be resolved. Because one of the comments were, at one time from Mr. Northrup is, if there's an odor, then we're not capturing everything, and et cetera. Well, in my opinion, there is not an odor with the cow manure. There's an odor with fog. And Barney sits over there, and I would just make the suggestion to Mr. Northrup, come out, put a portable desk up, put your phone in here, and work out of this facility for 2 weeks. So I think we need to have, I mean, we've been very patient. The community, I think, has been very patient, but
It's time.
it needs to be resolved. And that's my opinion. So if that means having a meeting with Greg, I mean, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but it needs to be resolved. That's my opinion.
Well, and it seems like a couple months ago, when we were making the transition with the management group, that's
Yeah,
over
Brainerd,
there, that was the concerns, the ongoing concerns that hadn't been resolved were sort of attributed to that poor management or whatever, which is why they made the change, but yet we still have some of the same concerns. So that would lead me to question,
Jeff, as a
is
neighbor,
there a
how
bigger issue?
often are you smelling?
Typically, it's probably worse on Monday mornings. And my understanding from that is that Chatterley doesn't work over the weekend, or Lighthouse doesn't work over the weekend, so that feedstock's not coming in. They have some issues come Monday morning. But I'm not an expert on this.
But it does seem to be
I would
worse.
say that's the general impression, yeah.
I mean, they've had the EPA and done the tests. I believe it's still within the EPA regulations. My understanding, they haven't been fined or anything for that, but it's not what, after going to Europe and seeing the ones that we saw, it's not what I expected at the current time. And I don't know what you feel, Andrew, but.
Well, there has been some frustration the time it's taken for them to kind of resolve the issues, but I know that's why whenever Greg's been here, and I've always kind of asked him questions on that, and, I felt kind of bad, but on the other hand, I was kind of like, I think the one time I said, well, why didn't you guys cap the fog tank in the first place, because that seemed like a no-brainer, and he was saying, well, in theory, it wouldn't make odor. It's like, well, an open tank, it's, but, so it sounds like they're kind of getting up to speed on that, and I kind of have the impression the operator had a lot to do with it, so I'm kind of hopeful that this operator is going to straighten things out. I don't know if they've had enough time to really implement everything yet and if they're still dealing with the phosphorus issues. It sounds like they're still trying to transition from the previous operator. But it has been a little frustrating because, we were promised something quicker than we got. But I know in Germany that the biggest odor, aside from that landfill one, the other ones we toured were farm ones that used mostly either manure in some cases or mostly silage, I think, for most of them, with some manure. You could always smell the silage because it's sitting in a huge pile outside. And then you go inside and there's no smell. It was nothing. And so that was kind of the expectation that once we got over whatever issues we had starting up, I figured there's going to be some things going on as we change things, disconnected, reconnected, all that kind of thing. So yeah, and like you said, he did mention that if there's odor coming out, that's energy they're losing. I share your concerns, there's no doubt that this is the right thing to do with the biodigester, and that hasn't been a huge problem, but it's still been a problem, especially for those that are close. I think maybe once they get this phosphorus thing resolved, it'd be nice to maybe meet with Greg and let him focus on that for now, but then meet with him and kind of say, all right, so what's your odor plan, so to speak, and see where they're going on that. Because, yeah, I was kind of surprised, like, I was talking to Jeff, and I was surprised to hear that he said, yeah, every Monday it smells. I was like, I kind of thought we were past that.